would you define it just in layman's terms? It's the most stressful loss there is because there's no possibility of closure. A person can be physically missing and you don't know if they're dead or alive, like a soldier missing in action. Or
You're recording?
Yeah.
All right. Let me tell you a little bit about this story. Ceci, amongst us siblings, she's the middle one. I'm the youngest. She is the most focused, oriented on specific goals when she wants, and she has been always throughout our life. And she was the one that always excelled. She always excelled in anything that she put her mind to.
She took piano classes since she was like 5 till she was like 20. She took ballet classes since she was 3 till she was 18. Then she did a bachelor degree in dance, a master degree in choreography.
Todo le gustaba, todo quería aprender. Entonces después de colegio que se iba a las clases de ballet, de piano y si había arte. Entonces tenía mucha sed de aprender, quería aprender todo.
La Ceci era curiosamente inteligente, es decir, sí la llamaba la atención, pero no estaba prestando, o sea, porque estaba hablando conmigo, generalmente hablaba conmigo, o con alguien más, pero cuando le preguntaban de qué estaba la clase, la Ceci sabía. La Ceci era la abanderada, la que mejor nota tenía en todo.
She studied in the United States, Cuba. She's always been intellectually prone, very, very, very stubborn, very, very good at what she does. But she was also forming herself in chiropractic, acupuncture, yoga. So she's a healer more than a dancer. She's really good at healing.
Ceci leaves on this trip more or less late May.
Creo que estábamos en mayo, cuando estaba la pandemia. Salimos con Ceci y pensé que estábamos saliendo las dos, pero ella me dijo que subiría un minibús y volvería. Entonces yo regresé a la casa.
So Cecilia comes to my door. I had just put my baby to sleep and my dog started barking, and I went to see who was at the door, and it was Ceci. She was very happy. I opened the door and she said, "Hi, how are you doing?" And I said, "Ceci, I'm so sorry I can't be with you right now because my baby woke up with the doorbell." She said, "Don't worry, I came to just visit you as a surprise, but I can talk to you later." And I said, "Okay, are you okay?" And she said, "Yeah, I wanted to tell you something." And I said, I was very curious, but I didn't have any minutes to give her at that moment. So I said, "Let's talk later, I'll call you soon." She said, "Okay." And she said, "We don't have to see each other physically because we have a spiritual connection." And I saw her leave.
And what happens is she calls me and she tells me she had already left home, and she went walking towards Tawapalca, an hour south of where she lives, by car, an hour south. And she had walked all the way there. So the first thing that she does is she calls me and she asks me if I can come get her. It's the middle of the week, early afternoon, but we're in the middle of the pandemic. So I hadn't left home for a couple of months. We were all like very strict on everything. We still didn't know how this worked. And I'd say, "But Ceci, I can't right now." Emilia says, "There's no problem. I'll probably just stay here and I'll go back tomorrow." And we talk a little bit more, and that was it. She needed a little bit of the space, most probably. didn't have a set schedule or a boss that she had to answer to. So it was very easy switching from one thing to another, especially when she had to, I don't know, do something new the next day. I think she starts making these decisions on the go. Her brother can't come pick her up. It's the middle of the pandemic. Oh, okay, not a problem. And then it's like, well, just continue. I'm already here. Why not just go a little bit more? Well, that little bit more puts her in Sudyungas.
Since there was no public transport, she was doing many things by foot and trekking very, very long.
She would always call me. We would always talk. There's a moment when she's in Irupana. She had spoken with my mom, and my mom sends her her full backpack, her documents, and some money that she had with her. So I believe that that's the moment where she starts thinking that this trip could be something a little bit longer.
In the last 10 years, she's traveled through Mexico, the States, Peru, Argentina, Uruguay, Bolivia. This would be like the third time she travels through Bolivia extensively, no? Months and months.
Throughout these years, she's been trekking the country. Bolivia is a mysterious place. It's perfect for Ceci. It's unexplored, it's remote, it's mystic. I guess she found her spiritual path in these remote and magical lands.
So when she departs in May last year, we weren't really surprised. It was another one of her long trips.
Sobre todo porque un año antes, Ceci vino, estuvo en mi departamento y estaba yendo a apagar los incendios porque estaba muy conmovida. Para Ceci los animales siempre han sido súper importantes, muy importantes. Yo creo que hasta más que las personas.
Y cuando la selva fue quemada en muchos lugares en Bolivia, ella sufría mucho, le dolía muchísimo y ofreció también su ayuda para ir a apagar incendios o para querer ir como voluntaria. Ella quería ir hacia la selva, la llamaba mucho la selva.
We're in June.
Okay.
June, maybe early July, maybe. But she makes it all the way to Rurrenabaque. Then we're in July. But every 4 days max, we would always know about Ceci. I knew about her all the time. She would always either send pictures, send audios. So there's constant communication.
Tell us about lagoons, and waterfalls and rivers and very beautiful places.
From Rurrenabaque, she went up to Santa Rosa. That's where she spent her birthday. And we spoke, and it was beautiful, and she was very emotional because she missed us a lot. She wanted to be with us. And yes, she cried a bit because she was missing home a lot. During August, she goes back towards Rurrenabaque, then we kind of lose track where she is. And towards the end of August, my mom was receiving information, so I constantly knew that Ceci was in touch. Ceci is in touch, Ceci's in touch. September 1st was my son's birthday. She didn't call, she didn't send anything. But the following day, September 2nd, she did. I received her messages, I received videos from Trinidad in Beni, and I was replying. All my messages would go through. They went through throughout the day. Some time starts passing, and I knew that 1 week had passed. I knew that 2 weeks had passed, and for me that's a big alarm. 2 weeks. And I start like calling up some places, but I still keep it on a very low profile. Well, I didn't want to alarm anyone. I don't alarm my brother. I don't want to alarm my mother specifically. I'm still silent, but I'm getting a little bit edgy. And my mom was still thinking that just a couple of weeks had passed, and I told her, please get your phone. There she sees that 4 weeks had passed, exactly 4 weeks. And I tell her, we need to raise the alarm. We need to make this official because something's happening or something has happened.
He called me up and he said, I think we got to start looking for her. So I arrived the 4th, I think, of October 2020.
En un sueño yo vi unas manos que me entregaban un rosario luminoso. Yo pienso que se me entregó este rosario para recordarme que ese era mi arma, mi apoyo, el rosario, la oración.
So I had already spoken with a couple of friends to know how this had to proceed. What we do is we open the case in Trinidad, and that is September 30th.
Recibí la llamada de Germán. Primero fue una sorpresa, fue una alegría saber de él, después de muchos años que no conversaba con él. Y después ya tuve un sentimiento de tristeza, de preocupación, por lo que me estaba contando, la desaparición de su hermana, que no sabían de ella ya varios días. Me pidió la ayuda para que siente la denuncia aquí en la policía, en la FELCC. Fue inmediatamente, terminé de hablar, fui a la policía, puse en conocimiento de la policía la desaparición de Cecilia y se empezó a activar los mecanismos de búsqueda y de dar conocimiento a la fiscalía y al sector de búsqueda de la policía.
Posteriormente ya se sentó la denuncia acá, se pusieron en contacto los hermanos de Cecilia con mi persona. Empezamos a la investigación, asignamos a un cierto fiscal para que se dedique a esta investigación.
Realmente sentar la denuncia es más que todo formal, pero no hay un movimiento de búsqueda muy grande como cuando está un familiar acá cuando está alguien que necesita también impulsar eso. Es así que transcurren unos días y ya viene Germán, también viene su hermano, Jopo.
So what we had to do there, it was like starting from scratch. As soon as we arrived, I went to give my testimony to the police and to introduce myself and to receive as much information as I could.
Y ya empieza a haber un movimiento de búsqueda, actividades, un apoyo muy grande de la sociedad aquí.
And we were starting to look everywhere, no? We didn't really know where to go. Even if you've seen movies or you kind of think you know how or where you have to go to ask your questions or whatever, it wasn't that easy. It was, why are we asking and where are we asking? Is there a faster way to do it? Can we check all the cameras? Can we go and check the whole city's cameras like this? No, you have to go store by store asking, please, if we can see your camera, if you still have the footage. And many cameras had already passed their footage because they only have it up for a month and then they recycle it. We found, I think, 3 cameras. We started talking to police.
Participaron en programas de televisión, de noticias, estuvieron en bastantes programas.
And we go public with it, and at some point somebody puts it on Facebook, and that's when it explodes. It's kind of like the Pandora effect, like the box. When you open the Pandora box, you don't know what's going to come out. And it's exactly what happened. We were not only harassed, but we were, they tried to scam us. So we started learning many things. You learn on the go, these type of things, I guess.
We had friends going to the morgue all over Bolivia. They all checked. They were asking around hospitals. Remember, a lot of people were being buried, not necessarily with proper burial because of the virus, no? So it was a intense problem to know if she had been around those places, but we really think she hasn't.
Tenemos un grupo con los chicos de San Patricio y uno de ellos manda y dice, esto es cierto, y era, y casi me da un ataque, así que había un teléfono ahí, llamé y era el del APA.
Pero cuando se trabaja en equipo se obtiene mejor resultados, ¿no? Poder hacer un equipo fuerte con las autoridades de las diferentes comunidades o pueblos, como Rurrenabaque también, para poder indagar más e ir por esos lugares que no se pueden penetrar, por esos aldeas o grupitos de personas que todavía viven entre medio de la selva, ¿no?
I believe it was early November when we had the dates, we had everything, we had several things aligned. Second was we had a friend waiting for us in Trinidad and who is exceptionally well known and has many connections. And during the pandemic, she traveled a lot, so she had a very big network.
Lo primero que tuve que averiguar o pedir información de que hasta dónde habían llegado con la búsqueda, ¿no? Y a dónde querían ir. A base de toda esa información, entonces identifiqué muchos actores que pudiesen ayudarnos en diferentes municipios, provincias, pueblos indígenas, incluso hasta con la iglesia.
That trip was from Rurrenabaque and around all the roads that lead you to Trinidad and get you out of Trinidad. That's important. It was a lot of recollecting info, designing our first maps, lists and talking. So we'd stay up for hours and we would be talking of possibilities of what could have happened.
El Beni es un lugar muy amplio en selva, en bosque, más aún en la zona donde aparentemente desapareció Cecilia. Incluso hay situaciones que se han sabido caer avionetas en esa zona. Es el último contacto que ha tenido, por decir, las Torres de Azana, y nunca se supo ni se encontró la avioneta por la densidad de la selva, ¿no? De los bosques. Durante la estadía en la Fiscalía Departamental, prestando la movilidad, no mía, sino de la misma Fiscalía, que cuenta con varias movilidades, coordinar con la policía para que pueda acompañar a los hermanos y algún grupo de familiares a poder iniciar la búsqueda de Ceci.
So we opened up a strategy to talk with the police. You guys got to do this. And we started looking everywhere else. Everywhere she had been before, she might have gone back, and new places that she might have mentioned to somebody, checking everything around that was possible with bosque, forest, with tourist attractions, trekking, hard roads, soft roads, everything that has to do with a possible, I want to travel through there, without leaving too far away from Trinidad.
Hemos llegado a muchos lugares con este trabajo de investigación a base de la información que Cecilia entregaba a su familia, ¿no? Cuando se reportaba, cuando salía de los bosques, tenía señal. Mandaba imágenes, se comunicaba con la familia. En los videos se nota que era una persona muy cercana, muy apegada y muy preocupada, sobre todo por su mamá.
She wakes up early in the morning at 6 a.m. She takes a shower. From there, she goes to the market. She sends us videos from there. She goes to the bank to retrieve money from the ATM. She walks around the city. She takes pictures of the plaza.
Mira, estoy en una ciudad que se llama Trinidad y es la ciudad más hermosa de Bolivia. Es bellísima. Hay puentes, hay muchas motos. Todos manejan moto aquí. Todos. A ver, te voy a mostrar. Todos están manejando motos. ¿Ves? Las motos. Todas las mujeres, todos manejan motos. Y hay muchos árboles.
The place she was at 7 o'clock in the morning, the 2nd of September, and when she left this town, we never saw her again.
Then she returns to the plaza. She speaks with my mom. She says, I'm going into mass. And she goes in. When she comes out, she goes back to the ATM. This is 11 something, I think 11:15. Maybe it was before church, I'm not sure. From there, at 12:15, 12:30, she takes a taxi. It's a small car, a small minivan. It's not even a crossover. It's a little car. She had bought a ticket that was going back to San Borja. This is on September 2nd. She's not the only passenger, but it's the middle of the pandemic. They don't have too many passengers. There are only 4 per car. She sits beside the driver and they take off from Trinidad. She crosses the Mamoré. This can take some time. And at 1:37 p.m. here, we have Radio Base Santa Rita here through this cellular tower. Perfect. She receives an SMS. We spoke with a few indigenous leaders around there, and we found some information that there was someone with some similar traits that could be her in a place called Oromomo, which is in the middle of Tipnis. My brother flew over to Oromomo to find out.
And I took a little plane into the jungle. That was our first real, we're going far. Town that had 7 houses. I just came in, I was like, hello, good morning. Some people didn't speak Spanish. Their language is so beautiful. Monseño Trinitario. And I was like talking, and then these nuns appear, and one of the nuns spoke English. So I went directly to her and I started speaking in English, and I said, have you seen my sister? And she said, no, they told us something about that, but we don't really understand. You really are disconnected from cities. So that's why I believe that Ceci has to be in a place like that. We met people on the road. People were very participative. So they'd give you ideas, no? If she's a tourist, she must have gone to this place, to this other place. So we would write everything down. And people started appearing. People that had seen her maybe in another city before, or months before, or people that thought they had seen her recently in the north part of Beni. And it was the same thing. It's like people that don't even know you, have never seen you in their life, they get close. A lady started crying.
Y la sociedad empezó a integrarse, empezó a buscar, pegaron panfletos afuera, las redes sociales, se activó un material de búsqueda, un equipo de búsqueda que acompañó a los hermanos.
It was amazing. It's like everybody was worried, no?
We've received all types of calls, but we've also had seers, we've had mediums, we've had coca readers, a couple seers that were looking into it mentioned that she had gone north of Trinidad, and they gave us amount of meters where she was in that area and that she had been there. Well, we know for a fact that that is not true, that didn't happen. Because of the information that we've gathered and we've cross-referenced, she did not go that way. We had to also look into that because you can't leave those loose ties. You have a place in your heart that is also hope, and you say, but maybe.
So people can imagine things, they think things, and they see similarities, and those similarities, we have to track them down. For example, last week we were in San Borja because a person said that they had seen her recently, and we had to get on the car and go check that out. But you arrive to the place and you gotta sit down, write down your plan, and you gotta start going one by one, your list, and everything at the end of the day has changed. There's a lady that tells you that she has seen her at this place in this, you gotta fly. Restaurants, markets, places where you can get food in close to a river. There's rivers everywhere. You have to get on the river. You have to go a little bit on the river, talking to the guys that navigate the boats. You have to talk to them. Even if they don't want to talk to you, make them talk. And it's amazing. Sometimes information appears out of that. Oh yeah, I saw her. I saw her with that guy. And it's like, seriously? And you go to the other guy, and seriously, he had met her.
Teníamos a la fiscalía, así de primera mano, directamente con la fiscal, toda la predisposición, la policía. Hubo una mesa de trabajo con los militares en la sala situacional, entonces viendo los mapas, por qué rutas pudo haber tomado Cecilia. También la predisposición de corregidores, de líderes de diferentes comunidades, provincias y de guardaparques. Gracias a eso se logró llegar a todos los pasos que hizo Cecilia. O sea, se pisó cada paso que dio Cecilia en su recorrido y llegamos hasta donde desapareció.
We filled in so many blanks and we met so many people whom Ceci had talked with, where Ceci had slept in different places, who she had stayed with. The specific locations, I mean, we started ticking them off one by one by one. That was great there. That was one of the most important things. We would sleep here, wake up there, continue and sleep somewhere else. It was always somewhere different. After maybe 10 days traveling, we didn't find Ceci, but something very important that this friend of ours told us was, this is not a failure. We find hope here. And that's the most important thing. We identified all of this. And that's what we brought out of this.
Una de las posibilidades que yo pienso es que ella ha tomado un camino de alejarse del mundo para poder vaciarse, para poder trascender ciertos aspectos que no le permiten unirse totalmente a su alma, ¿no? Y eso es lo que ella también me expresó varias veces.
Usually the call of Jesus is a moment where you make a decision and you will marry Christ. Or you will unite your life to the Christian life. And sometimes you can see that that is literally not talking anymore to anybody. The detachment. That detachment in the discourse of my sister was always, and she was always talking about what the detachment was, no? We had talks about that. It's not something new. But I never thought that she would go in that path of detachment to be able to prove herself.
No sé si dentro del monasterio como monja, pero sí decidida a hacer misión, a hacer labor, sí decidida a trabajar por los demás, sí decidida a un desapego casi budista, ¿no? Sí, de no necesitar casi nada para vivir y sí entregarse. ¿Entiendes? Yo sé que ella estaba decidida a esta entrega. Lo que pasa es que la Ceci ama mucho a la Mireia. Y estoy segura de que si tomara la decisión le hubiera dicho. Estoy segura de que le hubiera dicho, ¿sabes qué? No te preocupes, todo está bien. Y la última llamada que ha tenido ha sido, estoy re feliz, nos hablamos luego.
Sí, Ceci consideró, era su deseo llegar a integrarse al monasterio. Ella pensaba que no estaba lista, que tenía que trascender algunos aspectos.
That's her belief, and that's one of her most intense realizations as a woman in life. So we have to go into the probable places where she could be to confirm if she's all right. If we see her all right and she doesn't want to talk to us, or we don't know, perfect, but she's all right. If she wouldn't be all right, she might need our help. Or maybe there's nothing left to do and we have to see what happened. We went to tons of little villages. Villages that we had luck to arrive by boat, but you can only arrive by boat. And we traveled for 6 days on the river, going town by town by town. But we're talking about towns that have 3 or 4 or 5 people. We now know the 20th to the 25th of August, Ceci was in the south part of El Charal, on the road back to La Paz, in a river called River Kerosene. All right, there's a little town there, everybody knows her. She went into the forest. Inside that forest, the roads has fallen 10 years ago. They call it the Great Disaster. 30 years before, people would take wood out. When the wood died, they gave the lands for people to go and farm. And many people live there in 2 towns, Pucara, Ismaya, Pucarita, and Santa Rita. Those 4 names are 2 towns at the end. Ghost towns. Literally, you walk one day into the forest and nobody has been inside that forest for 10 or 20 years. Virgin rainforest in that place. Well, that gives us 100% clue that Ceci has to be in there. Second thing, this place is here. There's a river that goes directly to the place where she was last seen the 2nd of September, Maniqui River, San Borja, Arenales. There might be a connection to go to Santa Rita there. From this town, Kerosene, she was 20 to 25th, she might have come back and gone in through the night. So nobody ever seen her again. If she crossed the Devil's Tooth, the Devil's Molar, that range of mountains, and she arrived to where other people have seen her after October, she might be doing a longer trip, is our best theory yet.
This is one of the hypotheses, and it's the one that I follow. I follow it because of faith and hope. That's what I'd have to say. Must be around here. Now, here's the interesting thing, we can find stuff.
Cuando uno llega a ingresar a territorios que realizan trabajos ilícitos, es difícil volver a salir a la luz y conectarse con los tuyos, si es que se llegó a dejar ver, porque estas personas no pueden tener testigos.
Bueno, nosotros siempre escuchamos que, yo no he participado, pero siempre escuchamos de que hay personas que cuando ven personas desconocidas siempre hay estos problemas de hacerlo desaparecer porque tienen sospecha de miles de cosas, entonces piensan que es parte de esa situación y por eso es que a mí se me vino esa idea de esa parte. Por eso es que no la hemos podido encontrar. En cambio, cuando hay una enfermedad o le ha pasado algo en el camino, siempre se sabe dónde, en qué familia está anclada la persona. Pero así en este tema de desaparecimiento, eso es lo que causa hacer. Piensan que son informantes que puedan obstaculizar el trabajo que ellos hacen por este tema ilícito, ilegal. Entonces, sobre esta situación.
Es un tema, es un cáncer, creo yo, este tema del narcotráfico, es un cáncer que está creciendo así terriblemente y se está aprovechando mucho esa situación, falta de camino, falta de control, aprovechando esa que no se puede penetrar fácilmente a la selva, hacen pistas clandestinas, ¿no? Entonces aparecen pistas de narcotráfico que encontramos en muchas oportunidades bolsas con ladrillos de cocaína enterrada. Usted sabe que estas organizaciones criminales no dejan testigos, no dejan nada, ¿no? Y a persona que ha podido estar cerca mirando o indagando, pues desaparece, ¿no? Ojalá que no sea el caso de Ceci. Dios quiera que no sea.
Had sent all this information to the police, and we believe the police have to be doing their job, so we're not getting into that as a family because we're not cops, we're not police, and police have to do that. I don't know if it's ethical, but I'm going to go into it. There's a person that's going out with a girl. That girl is married to another person. That somebody shoots back a person that was trying to kill him. That was the 4th of August, and Ceci was in the corner. She was sleeping in her sleeping bag in a lagoon where these guys were kissy-kissy. And there's a thing called the notebook of the investigation where there's a lot of data of what they're doing around that investigation. And what was weird is that my sister never appears in the notebook. Because she was a month out in the wild and nobody was following her. We don't have phone calls. Like immediately, we have a phone call like at the end of the month. This guy called her up twice, and she responds through SMS, "Who are you? What do you want?" And I also want to believe that nobody was tracking my sister because of they want to silence her or something like that. I don't know. I'm going to leave that to the police.
Ahora, el trabajo que han hecho sus hermanos, su familia de búsqueda, el sacrificio, el tiempo, el esfuerzo, el ir por toda la Amazonía, el perderse en la selva, estar varios días allá, el riesgo que corren de introducirse en la selva, realmente muestra el amor que tienen hacia su hermana. Yo los he visto a los dos y cuando hablo con ellos están en el monte, están en un río, están en una canoa, están en un bote. Impresionante, más aunque ellos no son de aquí originarios y no dejan de buscar y de saber de su hermano.
Los veo tan dispuestos a sacrificarse, a persistir, a continuar la búsqueda, a buscar a su hermana. Y han sido viajes fuertes, desgastantes, tanto emocionalmente, psicológicamente, físicamente, donde también ellos están encontrando una parte de su alma. A veces es muy difícil hablar esto. Es como una llaga. en un gran corazón y les agradezco muchísimo, muchísimo por toda su ayuda, su apoyo, sus oraciones, sus llamadas, sus sonrisas, sus ya va a llegar, debe estar bien, hay que tener fe, esperanza, no pierdas, tienes que estar bien. Pienso que la oración es mi arma, es mi fortaleza.
Little by little, I started getting in contact with communities of families that have lost their loved ones to disappearing, missing people, extortion, crime.
So what's going to happen? How are we going to proceed? Are we going to? I don't know. I can't. I'm at a moment right now where I cannot travel because I can't handle it. I can't handle the juggling act. But I can't have my brother traveling alone, and I don't trust anybody else in there. I know that it would be great for him, like just alone going, confirming. I know he can, but I worry about him. What happens going forward? What happens? I don't know if we will ever have answers. I don't. Maybe we will never have answers. Maybe put it like that.
Todavía muchas cosas no he movido. El otro día yo doblaba su ropa y bueno, la fui acomodando en sus cajones y de repente empecé a sentir un aroma a rosas. La Madre Divina me está mostrando que está ella bajo su manto, protegida. Entonces esos son los regalos que me van llegando y me van dando más esperanza.
Sometimes people tell me, no, it's like, okay, man, it's been a year, you gotta go back home and you gotta start your life again. And it's like, how do I start my life again if there's a hole here? I can't understand that hole. And something I learned in psychoanalysis is that there's values. The valuability of life is very interesting. The guilt trip that humans have because they don't organize those things is enormous. You could be living in the city and your parent dies and you feel the guilt. You have problems in your family and you're carrying those problems for 10, 20 years and you live in the same city. You don't need to be disappearing for that. So if you go to the objectivity of the human mind and you notice that humans usually try to organize this reality of humans living and humans dying and humans disappearing, you notice that there is a possibility that this is going to hurt a lot more in a couple of years. Or to yourself, you're not going to be able to be satisfied that you did the correct thing. The analysis is very extensive on that.
We have the support. They just don't have the hands, they don't have the time, they don't, just looking at the numbers of missing people, which usually are women, it's alarming. I've heard over 10 per day. It's alarming. Trafficking, and I'm just mentioning trafficking, there's crime, there's homicides, there's whatever you want, even running away, but it's alarming. It's like, but I have to live in a reality where I know that they're swamped by work. It's not like in the movies. They're understaffed, so how can I ask them to put 100% or whatever they need to do on my case? They will never do that because they don't have the means to do it. So what happens? We have to do it.
We've been a lot of weird places. We had to go to mines that have a bad reputation of having slave labor. So you have to be very careful how you get close to those people. No, so we didn't really go to the mine. We went to talk with people around the region.
It's a little bit of an uphill battle convincing people that wait a minute. We're not here to look for gold, which we've been accused of. We're not here to take your wood, which we've been accused of. We're here because we're searching for our sister. And how do we prove that? How do we prove that when we have the documents from the police that say we're searching for our sister? We have the missing person poster. No, they also want us to go get a specific authorization from the area leader, somebody that's a little bit higher, and we're traveling on a Saturday. And how are you going to get that from a public office? I don't know. I doubt myself sometimes, or a lot of the times, but let me explain why. We don't have facts. We don't have, Ceci checked into this hotel on this day. What we have are, we have words from people. This person is telling me something, and I have to take that, and that will guide me in that direction. But
because you put all your energy this entire year.
Did we? I think sometimes that life is like a circus act. You have to juggle everything. I've let my family down, and I'm trying to juggle them with the search as well, and it has to continue. Does it? Let me tell you several things. I mean, I've had close family members, as in close family members, tell me, well, cut it out. You guys can't continue traveling because you have kids, you have a wife, your brother has his partner, he has a life in Mexico right now, and you guys are kind of destroying that. But then you say, what if she's there? We look for our answers. We go in there to say, yes, something happened to Ceci here and she couldn't come out. Then there's this other side that says, what if something happened mind-wise and she just lost it? And she's still there. I don't believe in that. Yes, it's a big possibility. Maybe she was eating bad. If you know how to survive in the jungle, it can work out. We have some leads if you want. The jungle, it won't wait for you. It won't cuddle you. It's fucking ferocious. I mean, something happens to you and, well, goodbye. You know, it's just nature. It's nothing personal.
Y bueno, empiezo a pensar también en que puede tal vez haber pasado a otro plano, de que aquí no se acaba, ¿no? Si ella hubiera pasado a otra dimensión, no se acaba, la vida sigue, para mí sigue la vida, pasamos a un cuerpo de luz, ¿no? El amor de Dios nunca se acaba y algún día nos encontraremos.
I really can't explain what I feel. It's like I know that I'm going to see her again, that we're going to keep in touch as we always did, but I don't know in which way. That's what I mean. It's been a year, and I changed my mind so many times about what could happen, and it was difficult to me to figure it out because there's no answers for this. So I feel peace every time that I think about her.
One thing we do know from the research about complicated bereavement and treatment of complicated bereavement is that people who can restore a relationship with the deceased do better. So people who have some sort of spiritual belief that death isn't the end, that they can hold a sense of the missing person or in mind who is okay and is going on being even in another dimension, and they can contact that, those people can get tremendous relief because it's all about the connection. And with ambiguous loss, we have a rupture in the connection, a sudden rupture for which there's no resolve. But in these other, if we can find a way to restore connection.
You just have guilt and you just live with your guilt. I don't think that there's much that you can do about that, and I can't do anything about it. It's just guilt.
Do you realize that it's not your fault?
Sorry. Yes and no. I think that if I would think about it, if I think about it, I can say it's not my fault.
If you rationalize it.
If you rationalize it and you say, no, I know that it's not my fault because it's not my fault. I didn't ask her to travel. I didn't. But then you say, I should have. Give me a second, please. I believe that we need to learn to live with this the rest of our lives. I don't know what that means. We will have guilt, we will always have it. I can learn to live with that because sometimes you go into that, I'm not going to drown in guilt because I hold on to my rational side, if you want, and that keeps me afloat. Don't get me wrong, because I'm thankful for everything that we have received. And I think that it's important to know that I'm thankful for the time that I've had. For my people, and yeah, I don't know how it's going to pan out. And kind of stop planning so precisely because these things happen.
The human mind always has an ability to blame you for things that you did wrong. Become a psychoanalyst, you have to go to your own analysis. So yes, I have a backup, and I consider myself lucky. But the blame is there. It's like, why didn't I see it? I'm a psychologist, I'm a psychoanalyst, why didn't I see it? Why didn't I see things? Why didn't I hear things? And sometimes the response is because she was fit. She could take it. She could withstand, like we've all withstood things that are hard, no? The pandemics hit her hard. I don't know, maybe the death of my dad hit her hard, okay. But she was a solver, and she was good at it. So, I don't know if it comes from that direction, no? If this happened because she withstood too much sadness. Your mind starts, or your reflections start going, you weren't there, man. You weren't there. Your family has failed that. You, as a family, you're not good at this. You have to rethink family. Families should rethink this. You think a lot of things of those at night and in the day. And you could get depressed with that and sad. Or you can use that as a foundation and say, okay, maybe there were errors, maybe I didn't see things, but this has to be resolved, this has to be clarified. And then we can still keep that grudge, no, not grudge, that guilt. Okay, it could work like that.
And maybe we will never have answers. But that doesn't mean that we don't stop searching. And that's something that I think is very important. What I was mentioning a moment ago, how can you move on? How can you close the door and say, okay, goodbye now. Now I'm doing all my things. It's back to normal. It's like, it's not. It's not normal, what I said. We've been handed this plate full of shit, and now we need to learn how to live with that the rest of our lives. What good can you bring out of this? What can you bring out? That, I think, the lifeline, the love line that has guided us and what keeps us as a family and as me as an individual. It's like, what would have Ceci wanted us to learn from all this? That also, it's kind of like a parallel that we've talked a lot with my brothers. Like, did she want us to travel with her? Did she want us to make these travels? We've been everywhere where Ceci was. Everywhere where she was, we've been there. And does she want this, you know? I think that this has taught us a lot of enjoy what you have, you know?
Events like this can be extremely traumatic and disruptive, and they can alter the direction of one's life. You know, the hope is that it's altered in a way that ultimately leads to a greater sense of meaning, even though the tragedy itself can seem meaningless and gratuitous. So why these things are so upsetting, they're intrinsically upsetting, but they also remind us that we're not in control here and that we can have the best laid plans, and sometimes things happen. And it's really about how we come to terms with them, how we find a way through to resilience.
The day that Appa calls me and says that Ceci has disappeared, it was like, no, this is what, destiny? This was written somewhere before? It's like, this is a movie? Am I acting? Serious? I went to classes, to give classes, and I was giving the class. And I was thinking, this is happening in my house. That's very disturbing, because that means that it happens often, more often than we think. Usually we think those things happen somewhere else. It doesn't happen somewhere else. I'm a teacher. I give classes in universities. And when I do social psychology or the social area, I make people notice something. So the evolution of humanity, or the evolution of the thinking, of the thought process. Right now, racism is seen like something from the past. It still exists, but now it's at least illegal. It's hate. It's like, come on, man, that shouldn't exist. That's evolution. That's thought evolution. So when 28 million people to 40 million people go missing every year, thought evolution hasn't thought that at all. It's like, we got to think that again. So one of the examples we do statistics in classes. It's like, okay, bring the data. And I make them bring the data. I don't take anything. So Google, and they start bringing information, and we find out that last year 30 million people went missing. And since we're in a big city, I make them notice that their whole city disappears once a year. Their whole city, the district. Yes, the Mexico district, the DF, disappears once a year. If you tell me we don't have a human, political, social problem with that, it's like, we're not there yet. So we talk about rights, human rights, women's rights, children's rights, animal rights, planet rights. No, we talk a lot about those things in classes, because that's the evolution of thought. I could give a formula there. Basically, the evolution thought is decreasing the level of pain, suffering, misery, and in a human level. And now we've noticed that it has to be done with the forest, with the animals. So we're becoming better. Humans think better. I believe life is like jazz, like improvisation, rock, music. Life is like that. When it rains, it rains. When it snows, it snows. Yes, you can calculate certain things and create your own path and live your own path. But sometimes in your own path, you're gonna get rain. It gives you an exact direction.
One of the ways that people heal through trauma is that they are able to find some meaning, you know, some greater meaning. And even if there seems to be gratuitous suffering in many ways, like in the case of a missing person, people who can work through the trauma of that can be resilient, can grow, and can find ways to make even greater meaning in their life.
People that I talk to and friends and other people that have a family that has disappeared start telling me, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? They give you ideas, but now they give you other type of ideas. Why don't we do a concert? Why don't we do a little bit of art? Why don't we, and from that, little ideas start generating a bigger idea, and it consolidates things that you can do, trying to do the search at the same time.
We've talked a lot about having something that represents her. Even this walk, even this trek that goes into the rainforest. What if we call it the trekking of, we always say Santa Cecilia. Ceci was not a saint, by all means, maybe for many, but for us, she's our Ceci. So.
I believe that humans are very caring. I believe that our generation is the generation that can eradicate the disappearance of human beings, the slavery of human beings. I believe that this is the generation. So I'm going to live to see that.
They find they become very strong. They're stronger than they were before the event occurred, which we call resilience now. They're very resilient.